What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and we're going back to the Devil's 2002 Dark Circles album. Apologies, this is one of the deep dives that fell off for a very long time. In a way, it was originally intentional, and that some of the groups I'm going through have like 15 albums or more. But the Devil's, it's a one-shot, obviously, for people who know the story, and indeed, as it was explained to me when I first had this material made available. Yeah, it was originally an early incarnation, you might say, of Duran Duran, which is to say it's Nick Rhodes and Stephen Duffy, the original singer of Duran Duran. I think some of the tracks were worked out back then. And then when they decided to go back, again, I always forget which one of them it is when I do this video, but one of them found the material. Maybe, let's say it's Nick. I'm sure it'll end up being Stephen. But one of them found some of the original recordings, and so they decided to revisit the project and flesh out some of the tracks, maybe rearrange them, or at least put them into a slightly different sound. And I think a number of tracks were also created for the album, but with an intent to make them fit into the style they were going for originally. So yeah, ultimately, given that it's just this one-off album, my original plan was to go through it a bit more sparingly, a bit slower, but even so, the last couple reactions, have had huge gaps between them, so I do apologize for that. Nevertheless, we are, moving into the latter stages of the album, and the next tune is called Aztec Moon, which Aztec Empire, as it's often was referred to, it was really the Triple Alliance, which is to say the Mexica and two other tribal groups formed an alliance, which became this large political entity and military entity. Indeed, it was based on conquering neighboring territories as part of their religious, political, military culture. So yeah, or society, I should say. So yeah, Aztec is a concept that I'm pretty familiar with, even though I didn't focus specifically on Mesoamerican history for my, thesis or upper division undergraduate studies. Nevertheless, it is something I know a fair amount about. But Aztec Moon, I assume it may be related to Mesoamerican religious beliefs, or perhaps it's a phrase that is used in more recent times colloquially to mean, a moon in a certain phase or part of the lunar calendar. But yeah, I don't know the phrase specifically, despite my knowledge of a little bit of Mesoamerican history. So in that sense, I'm not quite sure what to expect lyrically. Sonically, it's been a really interesting album. In some cases, it's had a bit more of a mainstream pop type of sound than I may have expected, but in other cases it has had a bit more of an experimental, some voices and noises that aren't part of like a rhythmic scheme. So yeah, I wonder sonically and thematically where we might be going here. So let's find out. This is the Devil's. The tune is Aztec Moon, and it's from the 2002 album Dark Circles. And yeah, like more of a pop rock is what I should have said, sound. Which at least out of the gate, this sort of feels like. Well, I hear in the Aztec night, birds flying overhead, flying far away, leaving me alone. I like the synth there. In the Aztec night, my destination is unclear. Each day I ride around, I read magazines and books, but never buy a thing from the big store. Aztec. That's a line of stores, or maybe a specific store?
everyone before me placed, and I will climb up to the stars. To the stars, I'm not disgraced. Aztec Moon.
It's sort of hypnotic, seductive, and has this allure, but it's a bit mysterious. It's funny, it sounded more synth rock at the beginning, now it feels more
Everyone before me placed, and I will climb up to the stars. To the stars, I'm not disgraced. Aztec Moon.
the more experimental synth by the end, or outside the line of synth-pop. Like that cosmic noise. Yeah, I guess in a way what I'm trying to say is that over the course of that tune, I felt both of the flavors that I've experienced going through this album. A bit more synth rock, straight away synth rock, which that's not a criticism, but again, knowing that some of these tracks were maybe more experimental going into it. Some tracks have surprised me for being a bit more, like commercial, which is not, again, a criticism. But there's been a couple others where it's been like, okay, this is, a bit more abstract, a bit more experimental. That tune felt like both over the course of the duration. Like it felt more like a, kind of commercial synth rock tune. And then as it went on, it felt more, a bit outside the lines, again, cosmic noises and some other rhythms that were adjacent to the main groove of the song. So a cool one, and one that sort of evolved over the course, or at least that's how it hit me. Sonically, or not sonically, thematically, I'm not quite sure what's happening. I didn't catch enough, but it is ultimately something where when I go through Duran material, it often takes me, a few listens and comments from people to get a sense of, what at least the consensus opinion that the song is dealing with. So it wouldn't surprise me the fact that even though this is not Simon's writing, Devil's tunes would be similar. So ultimately let me know what you think about that one, either thematically or sonically. And again, I don't think there's too many more. What number is this tune? Is this the 10th tune or is this the 9th tune? It's the 9th tune. So, like I said, we're moving into the latter stages of the album. I do apologize for the ridiculously slow pace, the glacial pace of the Devil's Reactions, but I will try to get through that. And I mentioned before, once I finish that, I'd like to return to the TV Mania album, which is to say Nick working with Warren, which again, it's an interesting thing to hear Nick working with Stephen Duffy and the what might have been an alternate dimension version of Duran Duran, and then it's interesting to hear a later configuration of Duran, or at least two members split apart from that, but a different sort of sound. At least that's what I got a sense of going through. I think I just did one track, right? I think I only did one TV Mania, maybe two at the most. But regardless of the veracity of that statement, once we finish the Devil's album, we will jump back to TV Mania and finish that, which is another one-off as far as I know. Really curious about what people think of this one. Do let me know. I will see you next time. Peace.